Hey you guys, so I made a simplified version of my gluten-free bread. In this new recipe, it's also grain-free unintentionally, but I wanted to make it a little bit easier as far as steps and measurements, and I wanted to make sure that I used only ingredients that were a lot easier to find in the grocery stores. The last recipe requires 2 extra flours that I will not be using in this recipe, so stay tuned. But first, I had to show you all the different ways I love using this bread recipe. First off, sandwiches and toast, my go-to when I want something quick and full of flavor with all the different textures and sauces. A lot of these I have been craving while I've been pregnant. And the cool thing about toast and sandwiches, or even just using it as like a dipping bread for bean dips or whatever the case may be, is that you can change up the ingredients to whatever you have on hand. Like this here, I have creamy artichokes on one, tomatoes and mushrooms and peppers on the other. Here I made burger buns and made a burger, which was amazing. Sometimes I use it as the flatbread as well. And this is just how I store it, and you can slice these in half, toast them in a toaster oven or on the grill. I have so many different variations of how I eat this depending on the sauces and the grilled veggies, the fresh crunchy veggies, the hummus, the crusted eggplant, the plant-based patties and the cheeses, but I'm getting hungry, so let's get started. So you are going to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you will be using 3 cups of chickpea flour. I have also used this blend of the garbanzo and fava bean flour as well. They both work great in case you can't find the other, but I do like the full garbanzo bean a little bit better. You may also get the ground chana that I also find at the Indian store in bulk. Next, you will be using 1 cup of almond flour, and it doesn't have to be blanched. And then you will use 1/2 cup of coconut flour. And what I've noticed is I'm not too picky when it comes to coconut flours. I've used many different brands and it doesn't alter the taste. And so instead of tapioca starch, we are going to use 1/2 cup of cassava flour. This I find is a lot easier to find in grocery stores. And next up, we have the baking powder, which I use 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder. I like this brand because it is aluminum free. And the next step is optional, depending on if you are watching your salt intake. I put 1/2 tablespoon of sea salt in this. And then you want to take a whisk and make sure that you mix everything all together. And next up, we will need some sparkling natural mineral water. We are going to be using 6 cups of this. These bottles I have here are a little bit over 16 ounces, and you'll only need 2 in order to fulfill the 6 cups of the recipe. I mix it a little bit after the 3 cups just so that it doesn't overflow and get hard to stir up. And then after we stir that up, we are going to add another 3 cups to make the total of 6. And then I'm going to speed this up so you're not watching me just stir forever. But you want the texture of this to be not too thick, but not too runny. As I said in the last video, you want it to be similar to like a pancake batter. And you want to make sure that there are no dry clumps. That's why I'm a little bit over mixing this here. The last thing you want to do is bite into a ball of flour. And here I'm laying some parchment paper out on a glass pan. I'll leave the measurements of the pan in the description below. And what I did here was made a cut diagonal to the corners, and this helps lay the parchment paper down so that it doesn't lift or make weird creases in the bread when it's all done. And now we just pour the batter into the pan. And from here you can really leave it as it is if you'd like, but I'm going to make some additional steps just to spice up the bread a little bit. And of course, these are optional. So I am going to speed this up a little bit, and we will be starting off with some spices. The first one will be some smoked paprika. I didn't do any measuring with these spices. I'm just going based off of what I usually do. I like adding spices to the top because it creates a nice little crust. And then I'm also going to add some pepper. And then next up, some crushed red pepper. And for a little bit more crunch, I also like to add some sesame seeds. I just poured some of those in my hand and then sprinkled them around. Next up, one of my faves is some fresh thyme. I just pull the little leaves off the sprig and then sprinkle those around as much as you want. You can also put this in the bread as well. It's very fragrant. And then that's pretty much it. We are ready to put this in the oven for 45 minutes. You'll know it's done because the top will be nice and crispy and the inside will not have any wet spots and will be fork clean. As soon as I take the pan out the oven, I take the parchment paper and the bread out as well. This way it can air out. Sometimes I place it on a wire rack. The reason I do this is to make sure that it doesn't get gummy in the middle. Once it has completely cooled down, I will start to cut it in pieces. I like to make mine in personal sizes, so I cut this into 4 long pieces and then I cut them horizontally. And they are basically little squares that I use for sandwiches or toast, but you can cut these however you like. Here is a close-up of the crust of the top and the softness of the bottom. I usually leave these in the squares, and then when I'm about to eat them, I cut those squares in half. But before I do that, I just want to show you the texture of the squeeze of the bread. I'd say fresh out the oven is my favorite because as the days go on, it could start to dry a little bit, but not much, but it depends on how you store it. You definitely want to store it where not too much air is getting into it. Otherwise, just like any bread, it can dry out, right? And here is the inside. Look at those perfect little bubbles. And we didn't even use any yeast, but that is from the mineral water and baking powder combo. And that is it, you guys. I hope you enjoy this simplified version. I have another video I just posted using this bread recipe on one of my current favorite sandwiches. Check that out in the cards or in the description. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.